It's a bear. Boy, the coin's getting it right lately. Hey, what's up? This is Brian Kuzmar with Commercial Rare Coins and Precious Metals in beautiful Lauderdale by the Sea. Nice day out there. About I don't even know what the temperature is. Oh, check out that stingray there. Got the. It's not live today. Got to admit, this is a compilation. Every month, Deerfield Beach underwater cam. I wish we had one here on our pier, but the underwater cam does a monthly wrap up where they take some cool shots, and this is it. It's about 3 or 4 minutes long. And got all kinds of cool looking critters here, probably even a few sharks. Look at that cute little fella there. And this again is not a live picture, but it is a compilation from the live videos they've done the last month. And I know it's not a fishing show, but what a great way to start out the morning, in my opinion, looking at surfing or looking at, what the heck is that? Ooh, big sharky. Oh, damn, that's a big one. Yeah, it's a great way to start the day out. Who doesn't love surfing and fishing and all kinds of cool stuff like that, even just laying on the beach? Well, hey, yesterday, did I call it or what? And you know what? It's nothing new that I haven't said in the past. It just kind of played out again. One of the things that I've been kind of lucky to actually understand, or my brain can comprehend, is patterns. I see patterns, not on a really micro scale, but on a macro scale. I see things happening. I can see movement and stuff. Don't ask me why. I just have an innate feeling for things on a macro level, of course. I have seen over the years the trend that whenever the Fed, we talked about real rates. The only reason that someone would get out of gold and silver as a wealth preservation is if they got into something trusted like a treasury. If you could trust treasuries now, I'm not quite sure you can, because their biggest buyer is themselves, more or less. They print their own money and then they buy their own treasuries. But no less, when a treasury bill pays you more than the cost of living, then it's worth getting out of gold and silver, okay? Really, there's not a great point. And maybe as a small percentage of your, I won't say get out of it, but you could, in my opinion, you could appropriate a smaller portion to gold and silver as wealth preservation, as an emergency, if you could buy treasuries and show a positive return on, and feel comfortable buying treasuries, not thinking that U.S. treasuries will end up being B rated or something like that. And you would get a positive return, but that's not the case, folks. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that they're lying about the 7% inflation rate. If they use and Peter Schiff talks about this today as well, and we've talked about it many times. If they use real numbers, we are probably at a 15%. To break even, treasuries would have to go above 15%. And when did that happen? That happened in the 80s as well. Greenspan, I think it was. Greenspan. Was it Greenspan, or I forget who, Volcker or somebody, raised rates to nearly 20%, or some incredible number, just to kind of tamp down inflation. But they can't do that now. Peter Schiff's got a good article we're going to get into, and a few other things. But again, I've said this so many times, when the Fed starts jawboning, raising interest rates, the manipulators, it's not physical retail or wholesale physical sales or capitulation. It is not, folks. These are done in the middle of the night, maybe in the London markets or something for gold, but mostly in silver it's done in the middle of the night, and they're crooked, in my opinion, overnight markets. And we'll get to that as well. But no less, yesterday I said that. I said that yesterday. I said it all. I've been saying it for 2 years now. Is that as soon as the Fed starts jawboning, raising rates, it gives a great excuse for the manipulators. And in this case, I kind of think Bank of America's in trouble. They got to replace this silver to go into the overnight markets, knock these markets down, and that's exactly what they do. So I called it yesterday. I said I thought we were going to see a big monkey hammer, hitting us on top of the head this morning or yesterday. And again, did I call it or what? Love this meme, by the way. This is the meme of the day, and this can apply to everything. George Orwell, man. He got it wrong by a couple years, 84, 94. He got it wrong by a couple, not really though. The decline probably started back in the 80s, and if you think about it, it really did. The drug wars and getting more involved with finance, not so much the drug wars, the excuse to know exactly everything you spend by using those drug war laws. You know what I'm saying? Remember the Patriot Act too, same thing. So it's been happening over decades. George got it right exactly. We are in 1984 right now, more or less, or we've hit that, I don't think we've hit the apex yet. If we allow these people to keep controlling us, and we allow these people to keep voting these idiots in and keep putting these same officials in, we're screwed. But I think there's time, folks. I think we can save this. All right. As far as manipulation goes in precious metals, got Ted Butler he always responds. He responded to a email I sent them to answer a few questions we talked about earlier in the week, and I'll get to that as well, and talk about a few things. And first off, here's my second meme for the day. Dealing with manipulation is all about reading between the lines and recognizing the lies for what they are. Now, I don't care if this is the manipulation in gold markets, manipulation of economics, manipulation of interest rates, or the CPI, and manipulation of elections, okay? This holds very true. It's about reading between the lines and recognizing the lies for what they are. And I had a friend of mine when I was a younger man. He's a very wealthy man. He did very well for himself. And he was kind of a mentor of mine in some ways. I'm not going to mention his name. But, he told me that when I was a young man. He says, you know what, Brian? He says, read. And he did say the Wall Street Journal, because back then there was no internet. The Wall Street Journal was it. He said, Brian, if you want to get somewhere, read between the lines when you're reading the Wall Street Journal. And the same thing applies to politics and everything. Read between the lines. And of course, always question authority. That's something that's my theme for the year. Always question authority. And well, anyways, that's what we're kind of doing here, is we're reading between the lines. Now, I'm going to kind of get into what Mr. Butler said. I guess he doesn't mind. Again, he's a paid subscription. If you are another talking head like myself out there, and your business is in silver, you definitely need to subscribe to Ted Butler's newsletter. And for those of you folks that can't justify spending the monthly nut for his newsletter, he's got a lot of free stuff to read out there, and you might like it enough to where you'll subscribe, but no less. I highly recommend everyone read Ted Butler, whether it's a subscription or not. And let's take a look at, he mentioned this in his letter yesterday, and it just talks about manipulation. It's something he said over and over, so I'm not giving you any information that proprietary per se. He's talking about silver manipulation. You may give up or die, but once you have enlightened to the manipulation, you can't go back to any thought that silver is a free market. While the silver and gold manipulation is with you forever, once you become enlightened to it, and that even lower prices will not dissuade you otherwise, it is also a fact that as a percentage of the overall investing public, the number of silver investors are very small. And this is very true, folks. Therefore, it's hard to garner the attention of elected officials, which generally concern themselves with issues involving the greatest number of potential voters. This also argues against a government-orchestrated silver manipulation, apart from a cover-up for past malfeasance. Exactly, I agree with that. I don't think there's any government orchestration of silver manipulation. I think it's simply done by big commercial banks and allowed by the CFTC. Well, you could call the CFTC the government arm, and them allowing it might have some government orchestration there. But no less, I think when it comes to CFTC, it's probably, they probably know what's happening, and they're the governing arm, and they can't admit that they fucked it up. Excuse my language there. I threw out one F-bomb today, but forgive me. And but even here, I found success in writing to elected officials when you keep it tight and narrowly focused. Now, this is what I want to bring up, folks, because I've asked you many times, and I'm going to ask you again to call up the CFT, call up COMEX, call up your representative, and Ted puts it wonderfully here. The thing to say, just don't intend to write to your senator or congressman about some wild and vague conspiracy, all right? Otherwise, we'll look like nutcases, especially when you're calling the CFTC, COMEX, to complain. I'm going to give you CFTC numbers to call and complain today if you'd like. And we should, every day almost. We should be complaining to these people daily. I call once a week just to bust their balls, deservingly. But you need to not sound like a conspiracy theorist or a idiot. You need to sound you need to sound like you know what you're actually talking about. And Ted recommends here, stick to specific facts, like Bank of America's 100-fold increase in precious metal derivatives in 18 months. Ask him what's going on with that. In fact, that's a great thing to ask right now. Ask him why the big commercial banks always run short positions. They never run the long position. So there's another thing you can ask him. But please don't call up and just start running stuff that you're not familiar with. It doesn't help any of us, okay? So stick to the facts. Just the facts, ma'am. Joe Friday. Yeah, I remember Dragnet. That was a great show. Just the facts, man. All right, here's the numbers I want you to call if you can. This is the CFTC. Light up their switchboard once a week, if you will. And there's a whole bunch of numbers. You can pause the screen right here. As you can see, Central Region, Southwest. Pick your number. Get a real person. Try not to get a recording. And if you can get a real person on the line, again, I don't think you want to call the website technical guy, so he's not going to help you. But here, who would I call? I'm going to say Inspector General Hotline. There you go. That's a great one to call. The Inspector General Hotline. Report fraud, waste, or abuse to the offer. And again, stick to the facts, just the facts, ma'am. And that's one I would call, Inspector General Hotline. You know, again, this is my opinion, but it's a free country. We should be able to call our government officials and unload on them. But again, do it the right way. Don't be an asshole either. It's easy to do, especially given the fact that they haven't done shit for all these years, but be cool, you know what I mean? And again, know the facts. What other numbers? Customer protection. Yeah, I'd call that number too. Maybe call some regional numbers as well. Call the commodity. Call this number. Anyway, pick the best number you see. So far, I can see that might be the best one. But if I got a recording, some ridiculous recording on there, well, leave a message anyway. That's what it's for, an Inspector General Hotline. Yeah, light up that number, folks. And if you see some others on here that it might get you some results, do the same thing. You could do the same thing with Comex, but Comex is, they're the casino. They own the casino. They own the Comex Casino. And they're going to do as little as possible to help you out because they make a fortune off these big manipulative trades. They make a fortune off it, folks. They don't make a fortune off us. They make a fortune off that. So that's their focus. They're not going to change anything until they legally have to or when their credibility goes to shit. And remember, we are still a small community, but we are growing hugely. And Comex is really losing credibility amongst a percentage of commodity people, or people that buy gold and silver and people buy other, because if it's happening, folks, if it's happening in the gold and silver markets, it's probably happening in other markets, in the Comex markets. And again, that's my opinion. Let me get a sip of coffee here, and let's take a look at spot price. Dun, 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 dun. Buy the dip, buy the dip, buy the dip. We're in a long-term bull market, in my opinion, since 2016. So like the stock guys are doing for a long time, great time to buy the dip. And I got some points to make here. Woo! 1797, man. Oh, that's great. Look at that, 2268 silver. Man, they have no boundaries, do they, these manipulative bastards? So again, buy the dip, buy the dip. That's the best thing I can tell you is buy the frickin' dip. This is simply manipulative monkey hammering in the Comex markets and probably the overnight markets as well. This is not, repeat, let me say, this is not physical or this is not retail nor wholesale capitulation. Now, there will be some retail capitulation in the paper markets because people that buy paper silver don't understand, a lot of them don't understand how these markets work. They just go and buy an ETF, and then when the Fed tells them they're going to raise rates, and the morons and corporate news and the morons out there that say, these rates are going to drop who wants to hold gold and silver when you're going to get paid 8%? Come on, give me a break. They're going to have to go to 15% or higher. Lies, lies, and more lies. And as Mr. Orwell says over here, boy, did I call it or what. So anyway, good opportunity to buy the dip here, folks. Let's look. We are at the low. So this is Crimex markets at this low is happening in gold. And I'm telling you, I honestly believe that them simply trying to force the price of silver down is not going to work. They've also got to drive the price of the gold down, because if gold starts to rise, silver will follow, and all those big short people in silver are going to get freaking killed. All right? Could even cause a banking collapse potentially. And again, that's my opinion and speculation based on people that are way smarter than me that are saying the same thing. Let's take a look at silver, 2268. Look at that, down 86 cents. Again, where is this happening? On the Crimex markets. Why is it happening? Because Comex and the Comex is making a fortune off these big short positions whose goal is not to hedge, whose goal is not to speculate, whose goal is simply to manipulate the market down to make money and stuff their pockets with money. It is manipulative, folks, and it should be highly illegal. And as I said, Comex gets away with it because there's no governing arm and like the CFTC, they're inept or they're complicit, one or the other. CFTC's inept or complicit. Again, let them know what you think. Do it politely. 22.68 the low, 23.62 to high. That's almost $1 range there, more than our 50-cent ranges that I'm comfortable with. But I know exactly what's happening. We know exactly what's happening. Buy these frickin' dips, folks. And I don't think there's any. I haven't seen any physical capitulation, even when they've driven this down to 21. No retail capitulation out there, none whatsoever. A lot of people might think, well, everybody's selling their silver, that's why it's down to $1 or $2. I can tell you as a frontline warrior in the silver, in the physical silver sales and the retail sales, that there is zero retail capitulation. There has been zero retail capitulation since even 2012. After 2012 collapse, I didn't see retail capitulation in gold and silver. They're all hodlers. All those people that rode gold and silver in 2012 up to the levels 2000 and silver up to $50 an ounce, all my big whales, my local whales, which might not be considered whales to some people, but to, six-figure plus $1 million purchased whales, none of them capitulated, folks, in the retail markets, none of them, all right? So this capitulation, so-called capitulation you see are happening in the paper markets. It's shorting markets simply to manipulate them for their own wealth, and they also go in, and I'm sure as hell that they go in and in the evenings and they fat finger these trades, and they go in, they sell a bunch of stuff off in the middle of the night. So when the New York market opens, the stops are hit, boom, 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 or overnight the stops are hit. I'm telling you, folks, gold and silver should not even be down right now. But again, take advantage of their stupid game and buy the stuff. Buy the stuff. Let's stick it up their asses and make sure that there's no physical out there. Keep pushing, keep buying. Again, that's my opinion, and I'm sure you share the same opinion. Otherwise, you wouldn't be 7 minutes into this video, or however long it is. All right, so 22.68, there's your high right there. Platinum hanging on to that $1,000 mark. Silver, gold's busted below the 200-day moving average, but that's okay. I'm not worried about it. I believe this is very, very temporary. If it even lasts through the week, folks, I would be surprised. But it is a monkey hammering. It is a manipulative behavior. This is the only reason we're seeing these metals in the red. So let's take a look at platinum, 1,014, 1,040, and platinum kind of followed these metals as well. So as far as the platinum being a tell this week, and I thought I saw it in the green more than gold and silver. I don't think that that pattern's playing out for me now. Let's take a look at it. Palladium's kind of holding its own, though. Let's take a look at the 24-hour markets and see where this manipulation takes place, and we pretty much know where it takes place. And there we go. Let me do a quick buy the frickin' dips. Okay, and there we go. You can see overnight gold kind of drifted sideways in that 1810, sitting above its 200-day moving average. See that right there, that line? That's the 200 DMA. Kind of bouncing, I believe it is, kind of bouncing around. Then, woo, well, look at that, right before New York, probably in the New York Globex, Crimex markets, the crooked Comex markets, and there we go, continuation of that in the crooked New York market. But there's that little rubber band effect. There's that thing that I've been seeing. There's your bears, there's your bull, kind of, just to simply put it, but more or less, there's your manipulative bastards right there. And there's the buyers, or it rubber banding back up to where it probably should be. But again, Crimex markets is where we're seeing this down a little bit later than normal. However, remember, Comex owns the Globex and the NYMEX markets, and Globex markets typically is where you'll see monkey hammering happening during low volume and quiet trading times. Again, I believe they do that to hit the stops. Someone correct me if I'm wrong out there, please. If I'm ever wrong in what I say, absolutely. I just want just like Joe Friday said, just the facts, ma'am. And I'm never admitted to being a genius or perfect. What I'm really good at is what I do here, physical sales, physical retail and wholesale sales of gold, silver bars. And by the way, I've got some great deals out there, and I've been advertising to beat APMEX, SM, JM, and SD Bullion. I can beat them on all their products, and so should your local dealer if you don't live in my area. But we'll get to that in a little bit. Let's take a look at the silver overnight charts. Woohoo! There you go. New York, New York. But again, Globex markets, it's purely speculation on my part, okay, and I could be wrong on this, but I honestly feel that these downs that we see in silver aren't happening in the London markets. I can't tell where this is happening or what where that trade was made that would cause that spike downward. I don't believe in silver it would be London. Personally, I think that's the 24-hour or 23-hour New York Globex crooked COMEX market, the 24-hour market where we're seeing this down last night or sometime early. Oh yeah, absolutely last night at some point. Some trader manipulating the price of silver down started monkey hammering selling into it, trading times, knocking the price down to kind of where we are today. This market is just a continuation of this market. And again, the pattern has been mostly for last week and before, for a couple months, it was the pattern was strictly when New York opened, 8:20. Boom, 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 boom. That's where you see your monkey hammering. I kept pointing this out over and over. I think people will recognize this pattern, and I believe they switched up their pattern. And the reason they do that is probably just to make it look like they're not manipulating markets, but they switched up their pattern, and here they are doing it in the evening Globex markets, and they've done that before. In fact, we've seen some huge trades done at a time when no one in their right mind would trade gold and silver in the middle of the night, and solely with the intent of dropping the prices down. And where does it happen? Globex, folks. Don't trust those markets. Again, that's my opinion. And as I said, just the facts if you're going to call these people and bust their balls, as we should. And also COMEX. Let me look up a COMEX number for you, too. I'll make it easy for you. Ready? Call COMEX. Keep it simple. Complaints. I'll give you another one to call here, too. Pause the screen if you want. And, where is that? God, that's kind of interesting. When did this come out? Focused on... sorry about that. 2013. Oh, back when closes investigating concerning silver market. That's when they, the one time they tried to, anyway, they closed it. They closed it concerning the silver market. So, COMEX request, COMEX, file a complaint. There we go. Pause this screen, folks, and I want to call them. I don't want to I don't want to deal with. Here, let's do this. Call COMEX complaints. Ooh, they're making it harder to call them. That was easier to pick up. I guess maybe they're getting enough calls they don't want. All right, here, maybe I can pull it up here. And I got to accept their cookies. They're going to come and kill me tonight. Here you go. If you wish to place it, beautiful, anonymously, but don't do it anonymously. Give your name. There's nothing to fear from these people. You know, they're either complicit or nothing to fear from COMEX. They're the casino. They're not, well, in the old days you didn't mess with casinos, but nothing to fear. Call their market regulation number between the hours of 8 a.m. and there's your number right there. Pause the screen, write that down. That's COMEX. And again, just the facts. Don't start being a nasty person, and it's easy to do when you know that they're greedy and they've cost you and I money, but don't do it. All right, let's take a look. Where are we going from here? I'm kind of curious what stock markets are doing. Look at that. The plunge protection team steps in again today to recover. Boy, why don't they do this for silver markets? PPT or their presidential working group, either they stepped in today or last night again, in my opinion, and a lot of people that are smarter than me opinion, that this is another manipulated market. I mean, if government comes in and supports the stock market, is it any longer a free marketplace? Hell no. It's the same thing. It's the same rigged everything that government gives us. Rigged markets, rigged elections, rigged this and that. So nothing good here. So I suspect that this is just a result of the Fed getting involved because they don't want, we talked about this whole week. I think the Fed bankers, not government doesn't learn. These people don't learn. They double down on stupid. But the Fed, I think, is a lot smarter than we give them credit for. I think the Fed learned from 2008 that they cannot allow, since they've especially gone into the point where they just can intervene in markets and not even tell us. So now it's an easy no-brainer to figure that they're going to jump into the stock market and other markets to support it. Because what they don't want is they don't want a crash. They don't want this greatest bubble of all time to be pricked and blow up on them. It still could, but what they're doing, in my opinion, is, Peter will talk about this as well, Peter Schiff, is stagflation. They're going to slowly let the air out of the balloon so it won't have that big of an impact. But what we'll have is stagflation. Again, I think we're in for some really sucky times coming up here if that's their plan. I'd almost like to see the whole thing implode. There'd be a lot of pain, but the pain would mostly be suffered by the corporations themselves and the large and the irresponsible, or would be the one to suffer the most. They should let it bust. Let the irresponsible suffer, all right? And then let us rebuild from the ruins that they leave behind, and take the assets they leave behind and do something constructive with them. That's my opinion. Let me move along here too. Let's see what cryptos are doing. Surprisingly, cryptos are up, but I don't think they're up. No, they're down. Okay, they're down. Boy, poor cryptos, man. They have been nothing but shit on for the last. But again, it's a casino. It's a highly speculative. I'm hesitant to call it an asset. I'm still, my opinion. It's a highly speculative game. All right, that's my opinion. Let's take a look at consumer price index, because when you start to think that government can fix something, all you simply have to do is look at this chart. All right, now. This is just a result of, this is 1913. Look, our dollar was actually worth something. Look at the buying power of the dollar. And this is inflation adjusted and adjusted for everything here as well. Look at that, 80, 81, 82. It's just, folks, in the long term, as a gold and silver holder, you, in my opinion, you will never go wrong, because nothing's going to change on this. This line is going to probably extend out further until it's just barely above that black line, but it'll still keep going. You remember hyperinflation in Germany is, a lot of people think they're buying gold and silver to trade with. Oh, I need to have silver so I can buy food with it. Folks, that ain't going to happen. What will happen is the same thing that happened in hyperinflationary Germany. Your gold and silver will maintain real buying power, where your dollar will not, like the German mark did not. And you will take your gold and silver to a gold and silver dealer or somebody and trade it in for more dollars. And just like back then, you heard about the wheelbarrow full of marks to buy a loaf of bread. It'll be the same thing. You'll sell your gold, you get a wheelbarrow full of marks, and you'll take that wheelbarrow full of marks and go buy some bread with it, all right? Or a bunch of bread, actually, versus if you had dollars only. But that's where we're headed with this. Nothing good. They're not going to reverse this. Folks, do you really believe that, you see this line right here? Do you really believe, honestly, that this line will ever go, see my cursor, will ever go up like this again? Do you think that will ever reverse and go back to this again? No frickin' way. We are the longest surviving fiat currency in history, and all fiat currencies are doomed to fail at some point. Failure doesn't mean like become completely worthless. And remember, the German mark didn't become completely worthless. It just took a lot more of them. Fail means what it takes a lot more of them. That's fail. When it takes a wheelbarrow full of dollars to buy or when they start adding zeros to your dollar bill to buy a loaf of bread, that's failure. All right, and it's going to continue to fail. I don't see how long they can prop this stuff up for. Let's take a look at Peter Schiff's article. This is going to be stagflation interview. Peter Schiff was a guest on the Wharton Business Daily podcast, and let's go ahead and go over what he said here. Peter said inflation has been a problem for a long time. A lot of people just weren't cognizant of it. That's absolutely true. I mean, look at this is why I showed you this, and this is why we look at this all the time. There's what your dollar buys over the course of history, 2000. It's accelerating downward now. So that's what Peter's talking about right there. And a lot of people weren't cognizant of it, but now it is, because we're getting into a much faster inflationary time. A lot of the inflation was in financial assets, so stock prices were going up because inflation, bond prices, real estate prices, that didn't bother people much because they thought inflation was making them rich. Inflation also inflates investments, maybe not to the good way, except for gold and silver, obviously. Nevertheless, consumer prices were also going up, but the government was able to keep that hidden with a rigged CPI formula that understates inflation. But in 2021, the price increases got so large the CPI couldn't hide them. Based on CPI, prices were up about 7% last year. And this is true. Remember, I was telling you that there's an I bond that pays 7.15% or something like that, supposedly based on inflation. Well, that's bullshit. The real inflation rate, as Peter will point out here, let's look. But if we measured by prices using the same type of CPI that we had in 1970s and 80s, prices rose closer to 15%, double what they're telling you, folks. So this is why when they start raising interest rates, it's going to take the wind out of gold and silver is bullshit. And the only reason it would take the wind out of gold and silver is that there's a positive yield. They're lying. There's no positive yield, and there wouldn't be a positive yield unless they got interest rates above 15%. or not interest rates, but if they got bonds and stuff, treasuries paying above 15%. Which is why it is very disingenuous when the politicians tell us, hey, you know what, it's not bad. It was way worse in my 70s. It wasn't worse. Last year was a worse year than any year in the 1970s if we measure it the same way we measured prices in the 70s. So we are much worse than we were. And again, I think it takes a while for the public to catch up on this. You remember, a vast majority of your neighbors and the people around us, they get all their news, they get all their data, they get all their information, they get their narrative from corporate news, CNN, CNBC, MSNBC, Fox Business. That's where they get their news and stuff. So they're behind the ball, unlike us, who we read between the lines, okay? So we've been understanding this a long time. We are a small segment of people, folks. The vast majority of your friends and neighbors, doesn't make them bad people, are living the narrative of the official narrative. And what did I always say about official stuff? Always question authority. Peter says he thinks 2022 will be worse than 2021 when it comes to inflation. He says he believes a lot of businesses were reluctant to pass on rising costs to their customers. I'm going to read this. Peter says, I think that businesses that were reluctant to raise prices last year are going to raise them this year. They have to repair their margins and make up for lost ground. So I think you're going to see catch-up, plus the pressure price is going to continue because the Federal Reserve continues to create inflation. Despite talk of tightening, the Fed continues to run loose money policy. It continues to run quantitative easing. Interest rates remain at zero. Meanwhile, the U.S. government is spending a lot of money. The government spent over $500 billion in December alone. Where does this money come from, folks? You know as well as I do. Out of thin air, and that's going to cost us big time. But we're not producing, Peter says, quote, we have record trade deficits. A lot of Americans have left the workforce. And the response to the pandemic was one of the most inflationary policies ever pursued. The government ordered people to stay at home and not work, and then handed them thousands of dollars to spend on things they weren't producing. Quote, Peter says, we threw gasoline on the inflation fire because we pushed down supply while we were stimulating demand, the worst possible policy mistake. And I was criticized in real time as the government and Fed were making it. And now we're paying the price for what these big increases in consumer prices. Peter emphasized that the economy did not need to be stimulated. Unfortunately, we needed to be in a recession because if people are not working, not producing, they have to reduce their consumption. We can't just keep spending money as if we were still making stuff. So if we're going to stay at home to try to deal with the critter, it meant that people had to spend less. But the government didn't want that. The government wanted people staying home but continued to spend money as if they went to work. And that was a problem, and again, now we're paying for it. The Fed has committed to taking on inflation by raising interest rates 3 to 4 times in 2022. Peter said even if they start with a 50-point increase, it's still inadequate. Folks, that's something that we've been talking about for a long time as well, and I keep reiterating over and over like a broken record. It's true, though. In order to bend the inflation curve, you have to get out in front of it. The Fed needs to go from easy money to tight money. That means interest rates need to be above the level of inflation. If the inflation rate is 7, you need 8, 9, 10%. So what the Fed is talking about doing is going to 1% or 2%. That's nothing. And that's assuming that the inflation rate is really 7, which it's not. It's probably double that. So, think about that, folks. Really, think about what he has to say. And again, I'll show you how you can read this article again if you want to. When Alan Greenspan cut interest rates after the dot-com bubble burst, the lowest they got was 1%. I'm going to take a sip of coffee, excuse me. And that was stimulated monetary policy. That is still stimulative. You can't fight inflation by throwing gasoline on it. We need tight money. But the problem is we can't afford tight money now because thanks to the Fed keeping interest rates so low for so long, everybody in America borrows so much money that if interest rates rise to fight inflation, the whole economy collapses. And we have a much worse financial crisis than 2008. Nobody gets a bailout. So because of that reality, inflation is here to stay. Americans are going to have to live with it. I believe there might be a solution to that. I'm not really like Peter and think that we can't fix this. I think that we should just drop the hammer and let a lot of people go under and suffer pain and rebuild a stronger, better system and a currency backed by something, actually. I think inflation is ultimately going to, this quote by Peter, I think inflation is ultimately going to push the economy into recession as consumers are forced to spend more and more of what they have on food, energy, and insurance, just the basics. They're not going to have discretionary spending, and when they have to cut back, that means a lot of other people are going to lose their incomes, lose their jobs. This is going to be stagflation, folks. Peter says he thinks it'll be worse than the 1970s. I will have to concur with him, with a weaker economy and even higher inflation. Worst of all, the policymakers won't be able to do anything about it. Paul Volcker finally broke Volcker. It was in the 80s. Paul Volcker finally broke inflation by pushing interest rates to 20%. As Peter clearly puts out here, which is very true, we don't have the ability to do that today. We could afford to pay 20% interest on our debt in 1980 because we hardly had any debt. Let me repeat that. We don't have the ability to do that because we could afford to pay 20% interest on our debt in 1980 because we hardly had any debt. That's why they could raise interest rates to 20% now. If they did it now, markets would collapse. But again, folks, unlike Peter, I think that we need to go through this pain. I think we need to tear down the building, suffer the consequences, and hopefully everyone's got themselves protected with gold and silver. And let the cards fall as they may, and let stronger entities that can actually do this stuff correctly, not Bank of America's, who make stupid decisions by shorting 800 million ounces of silver with the devil himself, J.P. Morgan. Again, this is my opinion. These are not smart people. Bank of America needs to fail, in my opinion. So do a lot of these other big corporations. And as far as J.P. Morgan, they're fucking brilliant. Excuse my language, but they're crooks, in my opinion. They need to go down as well. But again, too big to fail, too big to jail. All right, this is Peter Schiff's article right here, and you can find it here. Peter Schiff, this is going to be Stagflation Interview. Let's take a look at gata.org. Not going to read this, but there's some good stuff out here. Craig Hemke points out the strange correlation of COMEX silver and the GDX. Makes kind of an interesting little conspiracy theory there. And again, remember, conspiracy theories aren't necessarily not true. And it could very well be true that he's onto something there. Interesting little article, not going to read it, but I do recommend that all of you folks out there that call yourself stackers in gold and silver have gata.org on your bookmark bar, and Ted Butler, because you will be way smarter than the average bear for doing that. Let's move along here to ZH, see what's going out there in the political, economic world. Politics, economics has a lot to play with gold and silver. That's why I talk about them. And I also am prone to making some snarky comments about people I think that are making the country worse. But on the other hand, that's good for gold and silver. But, you know, do you really want to make money on the suffering of a country? I don't. I really don't. There's other ways to make money. But that's, hey, this is what they're doing. A couple things here. GDP soared to 6.9%. Despite that, wouldn't surprise me. Remember, as far as unemployment goes, as far as the number of people dying of critter, and as far as GDP goes, remember, we came off a closed year of nothing. This administration and the officials that are running this are going to throw their arms up like a victory lap, temporarily, like a victory lap, saying, look, the GDP's up, look. Well, of course it's going to be up. We went from 2019, we were driving at 80 miles an hour. 2020, economically, we were driving at 80 in 2019, even though we could be at 100 plus. And 2019, 20 took a dump. We went down to driving maybe at 10 miles per hour at best. We are now, oh, there goes the volunteer fire department. By the way, if you hear sirens in the background, we have a volunteer fire department. They're very rare. But 20 was just dead, so we went back from 10 miles per hour. Now we're back to maybe 60, not quite 80. And if we get to 80, all we've done is get back to where we were in 2019, which wasn't that great either. So this is no victory lap for this administration, and you can't use these numbers. Again, read between the lines and also understand that, yeah, of course it's going to snap back like a rubber band, all right? Of course our speed's going to go back up to 60. The question is, will we ever get back up to 100 again? Probably not. And in fact, will we maintain 60 miles per hour? Probably not after this year or two. I think we're going to go backwards again. What else is going on out here? That doesn't surprise me. Why would anybody want to drag in a new Cold War except for these morons right here who used the Russians as an excuse for the elections, which turned out to be a lie. And now they're trying to, basically I think it's trying, the reason they're beating the drumbeat of war, these people right here, this particular flavor of person and their friends. The reason they're beating the drumbeat of war is because it takes the attention off what a shit job they've been doing and what a shit job they're going to continue to do. That's my opinion. And again, I don't have a lot of respect for either party, so don't take that as a me thinking that the other party is much better. However, they are. When it comes to economics, I think in certain things they are much better. So again, I've always thought that the R party, you should let them, well, not really, they're not even fiscal conservatives anymore, but what the R party was supposed to represent were fiscal conservatives and people that cared about your money and spending your money, and people that cared about smaller government. What the Blue Party used to be was the party that cared about your rights, the party that cared about your Constitution and your rights to free speech. Neither of them are that anymore, folks. They've turned into these effing party-sharing monsters. But no less, this Blue Party is going to try to take credit for all this stuff, and really, they need to go, man. They need to go. And again, starting a war, come on, man. I went through a Cold War. Some of you did as well. Was it fun? No. Was it better when we became friends with Russia? Abso-freaking-lutely. And in fact, I have a lot of Russian friends as well. And they're just sickened by all this as well. But no less, things aren't what you're being told when it comes to the Ukraine deal. Trust me on this. You are being lied to. Let's go by our own government and by Europeans and by NATO. Let's go on here and what's my opinion on this legislation to bar Congress from trading stocks? I don't think it's easy to say, well, it's a knee-jerk reaction. I think there's got to be better ways to do that. But no, you should have the right to trade stocks, and you should have the right to be in a free marketplace. This law is simply from probably Marxists and communists who want to, well, anyways, you should be able to allow to invest, but you should not be able to use proprietary information, and that's what they got the issue with. And what else is going on? Jobless claims improved. Well, no shit. Like I said, we're coming off a complete 15-mile-per-hour ride from a 80-mile-per-hour ride, and we're lucky we're going to get to 60. Did that make sense? And there you go. Durable orders tumbled by most. Blah blah. China's. What impact? Give me your opinion in the comment section below. What impact do you think China collapse is going to have on the United States? Seriously, I'm not quite sure how much it'll have. In fact. Maybe it'll be good for the U.S. economy. I don't know. I've been saying that the U.S. dollar is the last horse to the glue factory, and that's true. All these currencies are going to go take a dump. They're all fiat currencies. Unless China comes out and tries to back their yuan with gold, we are going to be the last horse to the glue factory. So I don't know what that has to do with stuff. China going down, but China goes down, I think we're going to be not too far from behind them. Far behind them. Fear and greed, investors' two worst enemies. Good article, and it kind of goes into what we talked about yesterday. Futures swing wildly. At least there's somebody talking some sense over there. So you got the two countries, instead of the United States and UK and Europe trying to create a war and try to create a new Cold War, it looks like there's some actual brains in Ukraine that's saying, hey, screw you guys, we're going to deal with it directly. And this is good. Ceasefire is good. We don't need wars, folks. In fact, we need peace all over the world. All right? That's the best way to have a free market system is peace. Wall Street banks ordered by billions. All right, I'm going to get out of here. Not too much to talk about in gold and silver. Of course, I like to make my snarky comments. Spotify removes Neil Young's movie after. You know what? Neil Young should remember his song, Old Man. Old man, take a look at yourself. I'm a lot like you are. What Neil Young forgets is that Joe Rogan is a young truth teller, these are the new liberals, not liberals, but this is the new rebels out there. He used to be a rebel at one time, back in the wartime, 60s. It was a great time to live. But they've all, unfortunately, turned into status. They've all turned into, trust the government. Now, remember, it used to be, don't trust the government. That's who this guy used to be. Now he's pissed because Joe Rogan doesn't trust the government. Let me tell you, old man, take a look at yourself. I'm a lot like you are. So, anyways, U.S. intervene. All right, I got to get out of here, man. Otherwise, we'll have this video all day, and I don't want to bore you guys too much. Hey, I'm on Reddit. Reddit's a really cool place. Not Reddit itself. There's a lot of nonsense out there, but Wall Street silver is. You can find me out there. I'm listed as because Gold and Silver Pro. I post my videos out there, but don't hesitate to ask me questions either. You can friend me there somehow too. I don't know how you do that. Also, I'm on GTTR now, and I might get on Twitter. I don't know. We're going to check into it. But meanwhile, you can catch me there. I'm going to post videos. You can ask me questions there, chat with me as well. Happy to answer questions out here too. And where else are we going to go from here? Well, we're going to look at yesterday's video, Dead Cat Bounce, and it appears that we don't know yet. Can we call this a dead cat bounce? And also, can there be a dead cat bounce if the Fed is intervening and government's intervening in this? Maybe not. Maybe that's what they're trying to prevent. Let's see. Oh, John says I'm a nice bloke and I have a silver wife. I have a beautiful woman that takes very good care of me. So thank you, and you're a nice bloke as well, John. Let me go down here and see what else. There's my phone ringing there. And let me blow that up again. Marco says PPD has secret amounts all over banks. This is true. They order massive transactions from the secret amounts. They attempt to provide a buffer or obfuscation. The money then they use is actually even more money than they print on computer screens. Very true. Thanks for commenting. Appreciate that. And what should we expect? Thoughts on Feds raising interest rate? What we expect when this happens. If you watch the video, Michael, you'll know that I said as soon as the Fed jawbone, the manipulators were going to go in and monkey hammer these markets down. And here we go. In my opinion, buy the frickin' dips. It's an opportunity to take advantage of their manipulative, illegal behavior. And again, that's my opinion. Stop by a new silver retail store. There's a chain of coin stores or silver stores. That's interesting. They want $4.50 over spot for generic rounds. I think that's too pricey, wire brush. I think you can find a local dealer that'll sell them at $3.75, which is a reasonable price for small quantities. All right, that seems a little bit on the high side to me. Yep, he does not give advice. Schiff does not. And if you're smart, you don't give advice. You give knowledge. This is the best thing you can do to customers or people that, and I consider you guys my customers as well. This is the reason I'm here, to pick up local business in South Florida. So I consider you customers, and the best thing for me to do is not tell you what to do, but show you what I know, share my knowledge with you. It'll make you a smarter average bear, and then you can go out and develop your own narrative, your own opinion, not just mine. Maybe you'll teach me things down the road. So this is what I'm here to do. I'm not here to advise, I'm here to teach. Thanks for watching, I appreciate that. And when you go sell, there's no price advantage selling a Maple Leaf. Yep. P.S. He said, when you go to sell, is there no, he's asking me if there's a price advantage selling a Maple Leaf over a generic bar, 1 ounce bars. Slightly, you'll get more of a premium for a Maple Leaf and an Eagle than you will for a gold bar, but it's a very small amount. And in the long run, I have always seen in the long run where markets start to climb up and you get more sellers and buyers, all those premiums start to disappear. So why pay it up front? That's, again, just my opinion, okay? And again, there's when it comes to premiums, some premiums are just ridiculous, and you wouldn't want to buy them, because if you're paying $8 over for Silver Eagles, that's an extra $8 an ounce. For every 3 Silver Eagles you buy, you could probably get another ounce of silver in generic, so it doesn't make sense to me as well. Thanks for watching. And Jacko, absolutely, there's no force more potent than stupidity fueled by greed. That was my quote for the day yesterday, and thanks for bringing that up. And let's see here. Yeah, and that's true too. Thank you. Best advice, find a good local coin store. That does take time, it does. When you find a good, trustworthy deal, do yourself a favor, get the card, store it with your stuff. Most times after death, that's true. Wow. Great sage advice, Mr. Welco Services. Do yourself a favor, because a lot of times you plan on leaving this stuff to your wife or your kids and stuff, and they'll take it down to a pawn shop and get completely ripped off. Find yourself a good local dealer that's not 90 years old. It'll die before you do. And I don't mean that despairingly. Maybe he has a son that works on him. But find yourself a good local dealer, because so you may need to sell the stuff someday. And you find a good dealer, that'll save you a lot of time and money. Thank you, Gus, Celeste. You nailed it. They waited, and the bullion market tanked as soon as Powell started to speak at 2 p.m. yesterday of normal morning New York monkey hammering. Yes, Celeste, and I am swimming in that. Boy, that's why I did this meme here, because I did call it. Didn't I call it? But, when you see these patterns, and they happen almost every time, you'd have to be a real idiot not to recognize them, and that's my feeling. And again, I'm not saying a lot of folks that, like yourself or anyone else, is an idiot because you missed it. I would be an idiot if I missed it. That's what I'm saying, because I am looking at this market literally every day, 5 days a week, even 6 if you consider Sunday nights. And if you're looking at something 5 and 6 days a week and you miss, it's like having a kid. If you have a kid and you're seeing them all the time and you miss this giant growth on their forehead, then you're an idiot. So I'm saying, guys like me, guys that follow these markets, guys that look at these spot prices all the time, if you missed that, then you're probably an idiot, and you're really not an idiot. That's unkind. You're just ignorant. All right. And again, I'm not talking about you folks out there. I'm just talking about other dealers that look at these markets every day. I'm just blown away that they can't figure these things out for themselves. I'm one of the few people out there that are talking about how the markets are monkey hammered by these big manipulators when Fed jawboning comes out. Nobody talks about that hardly, and people way smarter than me should be talking about it. All right, let's see what else is going on. Thanks, Celeste. You always have some great comments too. I appreciate that. Scott's going to go to his grave loving his shiny shit. Well, if you do, make sure you follow this gentleman's advice up here and get a good business card for a local dealer, so when after you die, your shiny shit's not going to go to a pawn shop. Thanks for watching, Scott. Whose money are they using to bail these markets out? Ours. That's true. It's ours. It's our future. But it's not ours. It hasn't been ours since 1913 when the Fed took over, and that's the problem. It needs to be ours. We need to go back to the Treasury issuing money and making sure that it's backed by gold and silver, not letting a bunch of bankers screw us over 100 years, slowly milking us so we don't notice it. And that's exactly what this is. This is slowly milking us. Hang on a sec. Where's that line I want to look at? And that's it. This is bankers slowly milking us over. They can't do it all at once, otherwise they'd break the system. This is bankers slowly manipulating us to the very end, squeezing us for every dollar we have, and you don't see it because it's spread out such a long period of time. Well, anyways, I digress, and thanks for watching. I appreciate that, William. JM owns Provident. I knew that. I forgot it. Thanks for bringing that up. Hey, Ameripride, I'm going to do collectibles. In fact, I'm going to try to shoot one out this week. I got something I want to talk about, so thanks for bringing that up again. G, yeah, you got a good deal on that, I believe. I didn't do the price per kilo. I'd kind of be more interested in what is that per ounce? Divide that by 32. Let me take a look for you. Let me see if I can do that. Ready? 797 divided by 32.15. Ooh, not a bad price, $24.79 an ounce. Good price, dude. Keep buying, especially today. JM is always 3 or 4 cents higher than, yeah, as I said, Guy, the spot prices are always a little different from site to site. I'm not sure if they're hedging themselves or it's delay or it's the way they formulate it, but I've noticed that as well. And, oh, I guess I answered you already. And if you click on the coin bar, oh, thank you, sir. You know what sucks? You beat every dealer's rate, but you aren't selling online, so it does no good to tell me you can beat all the other dealers. I'm sorry, man. I'm not trying to rub it in your face. In fact, if you notice, I keep trying to get you to go out and find a good local dealer, even if you have to drive an hour or two to do it, Lou. Highly recommend it. Even if he's not as handsome and smart as me, I'd still look. And the gentleman up there has a good point, is when you go, you don't want your whoever finds it, whoever you left this stuff to, running down to a pawn shop. So leave a business card, some instructions in your silver as well on where to go with it. Sometimes you have to sneak in. Yes, sir. Crypto tank with the market, they both bounced back. My thoughts that it was all whales dumping at once. I believe that you would probably be correct there, Chris. And again, thanks for watching. Stupidity fueled by greed. It is true, sir. And they doubled down on stupid. Mostly government does. I'm really getting into limited strikes on ores such as Silver Shield. My LCS a dink. No, you don't have to apologize. There's some real assholes out there. And I don't get it. What's the point of being a jerk, you know? And what's the point of pricing stuff too high? You're not going to keep customers like that. So I get it. Go see if you can find another one. Drive a little further. Can't get junk. Pissed off at wholesale spot. Won't produce bars. He's been in business a long time. Not happy. He's buried in some health. Well, that could explain it. All right, I get it. But find yourself another dealer. If he's in health issues, he's not going to be around. Well, I won't say that, but not a good thing. Have a backup. Hey, thanks for watching, Johnny Boy. I appreciate that. And what a great name. How about a dead human bounce instead? Oh, sorry about that. I have a 13-year-old sense of humor, I guess. Well, I think that's it. My saying for the year, my theme of the year, my meme of the year is think for yourself and always question authority, folks. And the addition that Timothy Lear didn't say, question yourself as well. Whose narrative are you living? Whose narrative are you believing? Is it your own or is it someone else's? I encourage you to go look for yourself. Well, that's it. This is Brian Kuzmar with Commercial Rare Coins and Precious Metals, the most handsome dealer in South Florida. Well, smart one too, but I'm full of myself today, aren't I? Anyways, if you got any questions and you live in South Florida, please feel free to call me at 954-493-8811. We're open 10 to 4 Mondays through Fridays. We are a brick and mortar. We don't do online sales, but man, some of you guys are tempting me to start doing online sales. But meanwhile, find yourself a good local dealer, okay? I highly recommend that. I really do. And I advertise to beat APMEX, JM, and SD Bullion. It's pretty easy for me to do. They're great companies. Nothing wrong with them, but I'm a free market capitalist, and I'm also very competitive. And your local dealer should be as well. We shouldn't be allowing this money to escape from our state and our local communities. We should be getting these people to spend locally. And let me tell you, you brick and mortar guys, if any of you dealers are out listening to me that are brick and mortar guys, you have a big advantage over the online guys. Maybe you haven't realized it, but you do. You have longevity in your area. If you've been there for a while, you're able to sit face to face with people, and please be polite, and because it won't get you anywhere if you're not. And give people a great deal, and you'll develop a great reputation. Well, that's it. I'm going to cruise, man, and let's see what happens tomorrow. Anyways, thanks. Have yourself a great day, and I really appreciate you all listening, and just as much subscribing and hitting that like button as well. Talk to you later. Bye.